Welcome to the October 23rd, 2017 Ahrb meeting. First item on the agenda is 75 Main Street. If I remember correctly, we met last time and we heard from the applicant. We also heard from many of the neighbors. We heard from our Board of Trustee liaison, and since then I have looked into one of the questions that was concerning us, and I have since reread the Board of Trustees' conditions for approval on their resolution number 23 of 2016. And I found that the language is quite clear about the maintenance of the windows, and I'll read it here just for the benefit of the record. This is page 9 of that document under conditions of approval. Part 3, the end of the paragraph, the AHRB should also use its best efforts to ensure the retainment of the arched front and side storefront windows and a neoclassical design. So while I think I expressed some kind of positive sense about the change of the muntins on the side lights at the front of the building, I think that the Board of Trustees resolution leaves that pretty clear that those should remain. I take no issue with the painting of the windows in a different color, and I think that the railing is quite good and well designed and a great material. So I'd like to hear from the other board members about their opinion, and I can pass this around if anyone wants to have a look at this. The new material we have today are light fixtures and signage, is that right? I don't know if this was a...
That's
Oh, separate. Oh, okay. We'll get to this one.
Can I ask one question to the applicant?
sure.
Has there been any effort made to determine whether modifying the windows would impact the building's ability to be registered with the state? Is there any time?
Our historical consultant had indicated that, it's a very gray area, and then there's a little wiggle room in that resolution for you to make a determination in the best interest of the project. So it's not black and white. So again, it's red. We kept the neoclassical arches, and we think, again, going back to history, I don't know if they've run out of money, but you can see now it's just transforming. They kind of patched and pieced a lot of the parts and pieces in there. So to try to maintain what's there, which may or may not be right, that's where it's really your call in treating it to the best interest of the project and the resolution. So with the historical, we did not call black and white. He said it was gray, and it was to your discretion.
Would it make any sense to maintain the windows that are coming out and store them? Meaning that you place the windows in that as designed currently in the drawings, and if the preservation group decides that those windows are a stumbling point, that you replace them.
I can do that.
Would that be something that would be reasonable?
Well, I think it's pretty common to address window replacement on historic, you know, even buildings on the register, even ones that are already listed, and without having to, you know, go back to a, you know, wavy glass or a true divided lights, those sorts of things. I think it's a generally accepted practice. However, it is also, the part of that that's accepted is that all of the details match. So the window profile, the muntin width, all those things that are, if not exact match, they should be very, very similar. You know, generally are, the companies make similar. So I don't know that maintaining the original window is as important as maintaining the style, proportion, and details of the window in the new replacement is for these kinds of things.
But the window in the center is a double hung window today. We sort of agreed that that window can become a plate glass window. So do the side units become double hung side units, or do they
No.
become the same muntin?
Center mountain.
The side units are very narrow.
Right.
So that the center, I don't
So it's just a
think
fixed
double-
panel of glass.
It could be fixed panel.
Right. So, I'm going to repeat what I said last time, which is I had no issue with the color. I have no issue with the ramp, the railing. I have no issue with the windows, and even I don't have a problem with the way that it's presented or designed. However, this condition of approval is very clear to what effort should be spent to ensure the retainment of the arch, front and side, blah, blah, blah. And on the neoclassical. I think like a compromise is what we discussed all along, which is the side windows, keep the mountains, front panel, leave it open, and I don't think it will have a terrible impact on the look of or functioning of the retail. Side windows are minimal. And the retainage of the mountains will be a compromise that will satisfy, in my opinion, the condition of approval that you signed off with the Board of Trustees. That's pretty much my opinion. It's a compromise. Workable.
Yeah, in the absence of written documentation from the state that would say that an application or a registry would not be impacted by modification of the sidelights, I'd agree that maintaining the sidelights with muntins is a compromise that is in tune with the original resolution and also accommodates the retailer as well as the applicant.
Sorry, it's okay if I say something. So the comment that was.
Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm Melissa Lopez.
I don't know
I'm
if
the
the mic's on.
owner of that land, the retail space. So I think if it's possible, there are so many factors that actually allow historic preservation to proceed in terms of a building like this. And the emphasis is on the arch, it's on retaining the molding, it's on retaining the structure of the window, and all of those things are going to be kept intact. What we would appreciate is exactly what Mr. Greenwald has expressed, which is that if we could be allowed to proceed with the design as planned, and then if it becomes a factor, we can easily put the muntins in at the same exact dimension and structure that they are now. Currently, the windows absolutely need to be replaced. They are in disrepair, they are falling apart, and there's no way to replicate them exactly. So we have to have Marvin create windows, and we have to have Marvin do the best to fit within the structure that exists, but it's not going to be exact. We can't preserve the
It's never mentioned the word exact. It's meant best efforts.
Yes, best effort. And the best, and all of the structure of the windows are being retained. We're not asking for a large single pane of glass. We're not asking to take away the side lights. We're not asking to do anything to the molding. Everything on the exterior of the building will be exactly the same structure as it is. All we're asking is to allow this design to move forward because it's been in front of the board so many times. And if there is an issue where muttons need to be placed in the window, and that is the factor that's preventing historical registry from moving forward, then we are happy to do so. There's no problem with that. And I speak on behalf of this because I may ultimately be the owner of this space. I have an option to buy on it, so it's something that obviously would be not just from 75 Main's perspective, but also from myself, and we're both happy to agree to that 100%. But to force these standards on us when there are so many changes that have been made to this building, when there are so many things about this project that could prevent this building from getting on the historic registry, I believe is incredibly unfair. And I think that we are trying to create a beautiful design. We are trying to bring this building back to a beautiful combination of what it was originally in the 1800s and what it became throughout the early century, part of the century. And at this point, you know, I just wanted to speak on behalf. We are happy to do anything we need to do to not prevent historic, to prevent historic registry.
So
Yeah. Sorry.
Can-
Thank you.
I'd like to address your comment,
Yeah.
if I could.
No?
So your argument, while sound, also works in reverse. So if you were to build the building, renovate it, right, get it actually registered, and then put in an application to remove and modify the windows, you could reach the same goal, right? So I understand your argument, but it would just take a little bit more effort on the back end than it would on the front, if I'm not mistaken.
But I don't understand how the side lights specifically are what, that is an argument from the community. That has actually nothing to do with what is and what isn't historically relevant. And that is the thing that isn't fair, that we're being asked to be upheld to a standard that the community
Melissa, right?
has actually.
Can I show you something?
Created,
Can I show you something?
yes.
I'm just trying to make a point. If you read this stuff, and this is
Oh, I've read it, and so has my attorney.
And this is a condition of approval.
Sorry, but my attorney's also read this.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm not an attorney, I pretend to be one. I'm just trying to understand what it means.
The arched front and side storefront windows, the arched is in effect,
Should
the
you
side
also
is in
use
effect.
the best effort to
Yes.
ensure classical design? So
Yes.
all I'm saying is, if you add these elements to the neoclassical design, kind of maintains it, and it's not a big sacrifice. We give you the pay, or
There are plenty of examples of neoclassical design that create solid panes of glass on the bottom, plenty of examples of
But
neoclassical
just look
designs that
at-
do not have side lights. Side lights are not necessarily neoclassical
but
design.
look at it.
Do you want us to come back and bring our architect, our attorneys in? Like at this point, it's.
One, you need the microphone.
Yes.
Because this is on record. I think that this is going in somewhat the wrong direction. I don't think it's fair to point the finger at a few people in the room. I think that, and even if you do, it's a bit irrelevant because I have interpreted this, it is very clear to me what the condition for approval says and what that means. And the reading of this includes maintaining as close as possible to the existing side light. And that includes
It
three
doesn't
minor
say
muntins. I'm not finished. Those are 3 muntins on the side light. Hardly an impediment to proper retail, but again, not my my specialty. That my concern here is not what is absolute best for a window display. It is what is the absolute best thing for the community at large. And that includes you, and that includes people here, that includes the Board of Trustees, that includes everyone who uses the downtown. And I believe that the interpretation of this is to maintain the sideline.
It does not specifically list the sidelights in the resolution.
That's right.
It says the side windows. We are not changing those. We are not removing those. We are retaining the structure of those windows. We're not trying to get rid of them. We are keeping them. There is no reason for us to keep them except to follow the resolution. The buttons in the windows are not specifically noted. That is open to interpretation.
That's right.
Legally.
It is open to interpretation.
Legally,
It is
open to
open,
interpretation.
according to this document, to our interpretation.
To the community's interpretation.
You're addressing the board, it's our interpretation. You keep on
So would this have ever have been brought up had the community not raised it as an issue? Because this was about to get approved at the last meeting, I must ask.
If this was not a condition for approval, we may be having a different
The buttons
conversation.
and the windows are not a condition of
Based-
approval. They are physically not in the resolution, legally.
Based on our interpretation, they are in the resolution. That's what you seem to be misunderstanding. Is that our interpretation of the resolution, mine, I can speak for myself, is that the side storefront includes the side windows, which include the buttons. I don't know if any other of the board members want to address that same interpretation, but I think we're going to hold a vote on it very shortly.
I think I said what I had to say.
Does the applicant have something to add?
I mean, again, it is clearly your interpretation of the resolution. And, you know, I can circulate it to 5 people and they'll tell you 5 different things because it's not black and white. There is some gray and wiggle room in there for your interpretation. So, but it is your board that has to make the interpretation.
Which, to be fair, there has been quite a bit of wiggle room on our part, has there not? You have a.
There has, but this is my 1, 2, 4th meeting on the windows. The first one was informal, which basically was a go. The second one was unanimously for the windows. The third one was for the windows with a condition. And here we are on the 4th one, which is, you know.
Well, basically, this is, now we have the resolution, we already read it, which that we asked for it, and we have it today.
So again, it is your interpretation that dictates the bottom line. So, there's nothing, can't say anything, there's nothing to do.
It is my humble opinion and humble feeling that the design is actually satisfactory as is to me, from my interpretation. And I think purely on an aesthetic level, I actually prefer the single paned window without the muntins. But, you know, I am not an architect, so, and I don't have a lot of experience submitting things to architectural review boards and historical preservation committees, so, but that's just my feeling from an aesthetic level.
You know, I think we all agree on that. I think we all talked about that, and we have, but at the same time, it's not necessarily a question only of aesthetics, and it's not just a question of, you know, of aesthetics in a vacuum. It's not just a question of does this particular window look better than another particular window. It has to go into a context, and it has to take, it has to go into a larger framework of what the other boards and what the community have, you know, the constraints that have been placed on this project by other places, other people. Yes?
Mike, My greatest concern is that the resolution was passed in November 2016, and there was a commitment to officially register this project. There was a commitment to follow through on that. And what I've heard in the previous meetings is that that's not occurring, or there's been sort of a minimization of pursuing that.
We gotta stop right there, because there's nothing valid about that statement. I mean, we've done everything we can to really follow the guidelines. I mean, you can see with the brick restoration, which is in progress, and restoring the building, but again, if you look at the history of the building, I mean, there's not a lot of historical elements on it. The windows have been changed several times, and doors have been changed, openings have been changed, and even the front entrance was shown. We had an illustration last meeting that the window configuration changed. So it's like, you know, in the 50s it changed, which wasn't even that long ago. And you know, so there's been a transformation of this building. So if it was like the same condition for 100 years, I'd be in total agreement. But, you know, those 4 windows are definitely, they definitely changed. You know, there was a side entrance in the early 1900s.
I'm not referring to that, but I'm referring to the resolution on page 9, number 3, that says, the applicant shall work with the village and village consultants to have the Oceana building registered on the state and/or National Historic Register. Any determination of the state and national historic significance is not a decision of the applicant or the village, but the applicant and any subsequent owner should use best efforts to have the Oceana building placed on the state and National Historic Register.
Right, well, we are doing, that's what we're doing, okay, but at the same token, I got an education on shall and should here, because if it said shall, then it's 100% black and white, and if it said should, there's, we are doing it, but I'm just saying, there's a little bit of wiggle room on the AHRB
And there is.
in the best interest of the.
And there is the fact that we're allowing to change the main pane of the window, the center pane. That's where we apply the wiggle room. Now, my opinion is when you say best effort to ensure the retainment of neoclassical design, it's a condition of approval that we are trying to enforce to the best of our abilities. Which, in my opinion,
I think that's what we're doing. I don't
that's
think
what we're
doing
doing.
anything
So
else
at the
outside.
moment that you remove these mountains, you kind of devoid this neoclassical. Maybe. That's my opinion. Not accurate, but it's my opinion.
I think what it comes down to, Patty's not, what it comes down to is this board, when you say just the aesthetics, I mean, that's one of the most important things your board does. So if the 5 of you, if you looked at it and you said, the best look for the community would be if this didn't have the divided lights, but your concern is that that would somehow infringe upon or, you know, cancel the ability for this to get whatever designation it can get. That can be resolved later, if that were to come up. That's when they have to replace the sashes and put the sashes in with the divided lights. That, if they were willing to commit to that, then your main concern, that it would interfere with some kind of registration, can be covered. Doesn't need to be taking the windows out and storing them. The new Marvin sashes would be put in with the divided light. The appearance of the building is much better without the divided light. I think at one point, every member of the board said that. So why don't we get the best aesthetics we can? And if later it comes out that, you know, SHPO comes in and they say, you know what, we give this historic designation, but you don't have the muntins in the windows, they replace the sashes with the muntins and they cure that problem.
I hear this we'll do it later argument all the time, and it just doesn't float. So, because no one ever does anything later, that's the fact of it. What they do later is they make it even worse than where we started. So, we are going to resolve this here, hopefully
Right.
tonight, so that you can move on, because it's important for you to move it forward with this building. So I for one am not going to vote in favor of anything that prolongs this decision again for some future period that we have no say in, and there's no kind of enforcement for that kind of thing. So I just.
Well, let me just say that, you know, if I was to go ahead and put a picture window and take out the center window with sidelights, that'd be a drastic that change. So in best interest, I try to keep that configuration and just change the sashes more or less to solid paint. But, you know, in my personal opinion, if it was a solid glass, that would be a much better look, okay? That's, you know, but I try to be receptive in the condition.
Lee Constantine, I just want to make a couple of comments. I'm not here to take a position on it, yes or no. But I will say that it seems to be that all the boards, we get stuck on this language issue. Whereas it's not clear cut, there's words, like you said, shall and should, there's best efforts, and all that. I think this board especially should take more of an active role in trying to go through the codes and trying to put language that makes sense for everybody and that's more universal. And we wouldn't get into these back and forth arguments and delay projects more than they need to be. And when everybody comes here, they clearly understand. And I think that's really the issue here. Thank you.
Steve Tilley, 22 Old Street. And I really didn't want to talk about this tonight, but I think Brandon had it exactly right that, again, 15 years ago, we had the building, a tax credit application in front of SHPO. They accepted it. That's the way to do it, which is to, the building could be listed now, an application can be made. And there's nothing about the building that right now in its condition or its history that subverts the decision that was made. It's essentially the same building, the same configuration. And the way to do any jawboning about the window arrangement, you know, you're all right, for better or for worse. It was very clear, those of us who were at the meeting where the resolution was adopted, it was very clear that they were adopting the divided life arrangement of the 1920s as something to be part of it. And it is consistent with, if you did a tax credit application and went to get it listed, it's something that the National Park Service, again, for better or for worse, the National Park Service and the state SHPO are pretty insistent on. You know, it's just, that's a tough argument about changes to windows. Replication, yes, if the windows are, if you can demonstrate that they're shot. So I think, you know, it's not a personal, I'm saying this as somebody who's been involved in a lot of tax credit applications, a lot of work on listed properties, where I've had to deal with SHPO and the National Park Service. It's not a personal thing about the community, it's just validating that that was the intent and that would be the process, and that if changes to the window could be, any changes or adjustments need to be worked out, you know, with SHPO after the thing has been filed, not, you know, not, let's take the windows out and put it back, that definitely won't fly.
Anyone else? Any other comments? I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application as submitted with the addition of the muntins and the side lights at the four window bays to replicate what is currently there.
I'll second.
Second, yeah, you're
Yay.
against,
Against?
3 in favor, Dale. Against.
Against.
Thank you.
Yeah, against.
Yes. So 3 in favor, 2 against.
Thank you. 29 Osceola Avenue, please. So this is another application.
Yeah,
Good evening. My name is Douglas McClure, McClure Architecture. Ross Street asked me to help them refine the elevations for this project after your last meeting. In that meeting, a few of the comments that I noticed that you had brought up were one that the garage was a little bit of a sad stepsister on the project, which I definitely agree with. And that the front get the same attention as the back had gotten in terms of the care that was given to the design. This elevation is actually... Anyway, so one of the things we did was looked at the garage and turned it into a porch off the master bedroom, which allowed us to move cantilevered porch on the back of the house that faced the golf course, which was a little incongruous on that elevation. We also spread the entry porch out across the whole bump out and gave that a gable, that whole piece a gable roof to give the front a little more presence on the street and really give a grander entry to the project. We're also working to bring the grade up a little bit on that side so that the getting up to the porch is not as imposing a series of steps. So we're still we are working on that. I would personally like to get that grade up a little higher, but we have issues with drainage and things like that. To that point, as you move around on the south side of the house, you have a very large stone foundation wall. We put some fenestration in there to sort of break down that wall a bit, make it a little less imposing. And those are the main moves we made at this moment.
I have two sets. I have a hand sketch set.
That's my set, yes.
This is your set, and I have a
MCC,
Yes.
it's you,
That's me.
I missed your name, sorry.
Douglas McClure. So the draft itself has...
So just a quick question. I see that the windows don't match the elevation. It's because of the process?
They should.
I see
I
two.
didn't move any of the windows.
would you
Two
do us a
windows,
favor?
one
Can you
window.
take the mic
Yeah, I just
so
want-
that
I
we
just
can
wanted
get you
to
on
see-
record? Yeah, but if we're gonna come up and chat.
I will. I just can't see the elevation on this one.
The front?
The front, yeah. That's the same. Okay. Thank you. So you have my original sketch elevations, and there's one detail in there that I like better on the sketch elevation.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that they seem to not be coordinated, the elevations and the plans.
I will look at that. I did not move any of the windows.
No, I get it, I'm just trying to
So
get.
I'll have to double check that. The, in the front elevation, what I have in the sketch elevations that is really what I was proposing, was that this gable, which faces south, would not be there. We would just have
Right.
the
Yeah.
slope roof here with dormers,
No,
which
it's,
is
I
how.
mean, the sketch elevations are,
Sketched
are
elevation,
what
yes.
should,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, which also addresses
Be the
the
basis for-
sky plane in a more elegant way.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Agreed.
for some reason, the sketch elevations are better proportion than
Yeah.
the other ones.
And the window issue is fairly minor. It's that on the ground floor and the ground floor, the dining room is showing 2 openings, and you're showing sort of 2 smaller windows, which is that the 3rd row of windows from the left.
Right.
So that's the dining on the
Yeah,
first
I'm
floor.
not,
you
the original
two.
plans I was working with, I thought only had one window, so I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah.
There's also a variation on the second floor and the ground floor between it's a triple window versus a single window in the living room and in the double height of the foyer.
Which elevation?
The elevations show single windows, but the plans show triple window, a much
Okay.
wider area of
Yes.
window.
That obviously you have picked up on the plan.
And materials overall, like for example, in the south elevation, you're keeping the same materials.
They're the same materials that I believe were presented to you previously. I was essentially asked to work with the envelope to address some of your concerns. But we weren't changing materials or the trim profiles.
What's the dimension of the depth of the front porch?
Of the which?
The front porch?
It's 29.4 across, and I believe it's 5 feet projecting out. Just enough for a small rocker.
Dale, is your question about this elevation really?
It's that elevation of the depth of the porch, just seems
Yeah.
really tight
Yeah.
for a porch.
Look, I
But it's very nice, the expression's really good, it's
Yeah.
much improved over the last go-round. I just wonder if it might make sense
Well,
or,
I'm a little limited by coverage,
okay.
and so I was trying to get as much as I could at this point without,
I think the direction that the house took, it's a pleasing one. And I'll encourage you to not only work on the adjustment of coordinated plans and sections and, and elevations, but also reviewing the materials that the house is looking into, but I think it's,
are there materials you're concerned about specifically?
no, I just, give it another fresh look. I will,
Okay.
but otherwise it's looking very,
I think our concern early on was that the applicant hire someone with the kind of sensibilities who would design a house that fit well in the neighborhood. And you're that kind of person we were hoping would show up here. And so, and I think there's a lot of good things happening here, a lot of merit in the sketches, and some of those things start to break down when it translates to, hardline drawing. And I would just urge the applicant to maintain the involvement of, this type of professional along the way, so that we have a translation from idea to document to built house that's consistent. And I think that's the kind of thing that is going to work well for all of us here, all of the members of all the neighbors, and so I just urge you to not lose much of the sort of beauty and intelligence that's in this document as it translates. But I think we're going certainly in a good direction at the moment.
So specifically, I assume
Well, I think we
we're
lost
not
some.
getting approval tonight, but you would like to see more.
Well, I don't think
coordination
we
between
have
animation
quite,
and-
yeah, I don't know we have quite enough,
I understand.
I think the drawings need to be coordinated, especially the
Yes.
sketch drawings.
Yes.
What in the plan shows a window and the elevation is
Yes.
not coordinated, that of course has to be coordinated.
but I also think some of the proportions seem to be slightly lost from one set of documents to the other.
Yeah.
And I think that,
The document that needs to be developed is this one, right?
yeah,
And coordinated into a set of drawings with materials calling and proper presentations, and that's it. You're in. Motion to continue?
yeah, I want to give all the, I don't, hopefully we can come back next time with all of this stuff documented. And I think it's some small things. For example, the garage doors, if those can be identified, if there's a material that goes along with them, or if it's just painted to match the trim, that's fine. I just think that
You need more of the information.
we need more information about what's the door, what type it is, I actually have some notes here about windows and sort of sizes, and there's quite a bit, and I think we're pretty close, but there's
You'd
a.
like a more complete set of work.
Yeah, it has to be coordinated, yeah. Present it forward.
Any comments from neighbors? Yes, Jonathan? Oh,
One reason I'll jump up first is because
Please.
actually it's listed as my property, it no longer is. It's 20 on the agenda, it says 29 Osceola, Kevin Mary Lockhart. So we no longer own the property, so we're now a neighbor as opposed to an owner. So that's point number one. Point number two is just for the process of the design of the house started, before you guys got involved, and I just give my personal support to the changes that have occurred, both getting Douglas involved, getting Douglas involved, as well as, the choice of materials and all those things. So actually, I support the work that you're putting in. And overall, I actually think it's a great home, you want to live in closest to it. I actually think it's a really nice design, it complements the neighborhood, but I appreciate your focus on the materials, et cetera, because that, at this point, I think this design, the materials are key to making sure it's the quality that, for example, my house is. So, thank you.
Thanks. Peter Hoffman, representing RC Country Club. I guess I'd like to echo a little bit of what Kevin said. I think with Mr. McClure's involvement, this is turning into a much better project. I am glad that we're not making a decision tonight. There are some people that were involved in the drafting of the covenants that are concerned with a couple of factors. One of which, is the you call it patio or deck above the garage. Is that in concert with this or not? That's for lawyers or whatnot to decide, or for you folks to decide. Is that a deck? Is that not a deck? But there's a degree of privacy that the club would like to see on the second tee, which is right off that, and there was a protection that
an on-ground deck had, that certainly something like this does not. So, but we are moving in a very good direction, and I'm thankful for your attention.
So I might as well being the person that negotiated all these covenants with the club, the neighbors, the lawyers. In 2009, I know every single detail and every single thought behind them. So what is above the garage is a porch, want to call it that, patio perhaps. The word deck was in the covenants because the club was concerned that there be stilts, or that actually a deck, what most people consider a deck is often something that the rain falls through, and you've got big stilts that extends the, the profile of the house. In this case, the extension of the garage, which in a way takes the profile out on the side, I think the club actually wants, but certainly I, as a club member, want, because it softens the mass of the house on that side. So, there's obviously a bit of a give and take there, but what I did want to give you was the perspective of the covenant, which is deck in that case was, we don't want, a big wooden structure that's on stilts facing.
There is a difference between a deck and a terrace. A terrace when it has function under it, and this is a terrace. Yes.
So as I certainly, I think as the team was doing that, it was more in that, and that's why certainly when I saw the design, having someone that negotiated the covenants, when I saw the design, it didn't hit me at all as a concern, because it didn't actually, it wasn't what the club was not looking for. They didn't want the deck on stilts, so to speak.
Good, thanks for the clarification, and I also think it's a good way to do garage if you're not doing a detached one, and the railing softens up the different roof line quite a bit, and I think that's a benefit for everyone. So.
Actually, one point I forgot to mention was that in terms of the privacy, which Peter is right, the club was concerned about activity and privacy near the tee box. So that's actually why I gave an easement as well as restrictions on that land between the tee box and the garage, that the owners cannot actually put a swing set or a pool or anything like that. So there isn't people, basically, and this is what they were saying at the time, they didn't want structures where the kids are playing on a trampoline or something like that right inside the tee box. So the privacy point wasn't related to a deck. The privacy point was related to activity near the tee box, which we protected that with the easements and the restrictions.
Okay.
That is a 75-foot easement, a non-disturbance area.
Yeah, that was backwards.
So overall, that garage is about 150 feet or so from that edge of the property. Okay. Good. Very helpful. Motion to continue this to the next hearing when we have some more completed drawings. Dale seconds. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Belden Avenue Historic District.
Board of Trustees and with the help of the mayor, I established a task force to work on improving the legislation and putting a real system in place for the designation and regulation of historic districts and landmarks in Dobbs Ferry. So we spent a couple of years doing that, and we got it passed recently, and it's now been integrated into the village code. And so now I'm back to say, once again, I would like to designate my block of Belden Avenue as a historic district, but this time we know what we're doing, and we actually have some good laws in place to help us through this process. So this is a very exciting moment for me and my neighbors who've been super supportive through this whole process. So you all have received the applications. I know that they're lengthy. It's a lot to go through. Just to give you an overview, there's an overall historic district application which explains our thinking about the street, and then there are individual property forms for each property in the proposed district. And those have a sort of scoring system which is supposed to be kind of a, it's an informal way of kind of evaluating all the different considerations for each property, you know, as far as age, historic importance to the village, how many components are still intact, things like that. And you'll see how we've scored each property. But all of the properties in the district got good enough scores to be considered contributing properties to a historic district. So I'm just going to briefly take you through the application real quick. The district that we're proposing is 12 houses that face Belden Avenue between Broadway and Walker. And this district has certain defining characteristics that really set it apart in the village. It's a cohesive collection of Victorian homes built between 1870 and 1913 that are known and loved throughout the village. This is an unusual block for Dobbs Ferry because it has a really well-maintained, very cohesive collection of homes built roughly around the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, that really stand out as a collection. They are very exemplary of Victorian architecture, and they can tell us a lot about, at the time, the influence of the burgeoning railroad and the increased use of pattern books, which help spread architectural styles and create and helped with the mass production of decorative elements, which were transported by the railroads, and people started using these decorative elements that were suddenly becoming more accessible. So this was a time when a lot more people were having access to these different architectural styles and able to use these pattern books almost as catalogs to say, you know, I want my home to look French, and so I'm going to build it in the Second Empire style, whatever. And so what we have on Belden Avenue is a wonderful, almost visual pattern book of the types of styles that were being embraced at that time when people were suddenly discovering these wonderful architectural styles coming from Europe and were starting to imitate them in their own homes. Another really important and interesting aspect of this street is the front porches and the rear alleys. And this speaks to this Victorian sensibility of dividing private from the public, the private life from the public life. And so this was a time when the Hudson River School of Landscape Painting was very popular. People were starting to discover the joys of nature and landscapes, and they were starting to bring that into their homes through landscape design, which was kind of a new concept for you know, sort of working class homes at this time. And front porches allowed the Victorians to have a space where they could not only get fresh air, which the Victorians loved, but also enjoy these front yards that were suddenly becoming more lavishly designed and were becoming sort of an important part of the design of the property. And so the front porches on Belden Avenue are a real reflection of that sensibility, as are the generous front yards that all of the houses have. And at the same time, the Victorians like to keep a lot of things at the back of the property that were sort of considered private and not suitable for, you know, the front of the property. Things like servants, animals, garbage, privies, things like that. And so Belden Avenue was designed with alleys or lanes along the backs of the property. So we have North Lane and South Lane running along the backs of the property where people could get deliveries or trash is collected, animals at the time could come and go, and this was all kept very separate. So this is a really sort of interesting layout that makes Belden Avenue distinctive in Duxbury, and it sort of gives us a glimpse into how people lived their lives at the time that these houses were built, and shows us how, you know, paying attention to historic preservation can kind of give us a sense of what people were thinking about at the time that these homes were built and how people were living, and it tells a story. So those are some of the things that we want to just keep in mind as we think about how to preserve Belden Avenue as a historic district. So I'm just going to take you through the houses in the order that they were built, roughly, based on what we know. 29 Belden was the first house built on the street. It was built by Dudley Field and his wife, Laura Belden Field. They were wealthy people from New York who summered in Duxbury, and they owned a lot of land around here, and they subdivided it, and they sold it, and they were sort of the ones who created this whole neighborhood. And originally, we have a map that shows that it was called Dudley Park, but after he died, Laura Belden took over his real estate concerns, and all of a sudden it became Belden Park. And we have Belden Avenue, which is named after her. And we've been told that at the entrance of the street from Broadway, there was an iron gate that said Belden Park on it. So this is a woman who was not shy about her role in creating this neighborhood of Dobbs Ferry, and she was very proud to continue the work of her husband. So this is their house. It was built in 1870. We have a picture of, close to the original house. We can see that the front porch originally ran across the front of the house. And it had shutters, double hung wood windows, a slate mansard roof. It's undergone a very extensive renovation the last couple of years, and pretty much all of the original details are gone. So as far as what we want to preserve moving forward, what's left, I would say, are the shape of the mansard roof and the proportions of the Second Empire architecture. 36 Belden across the street, built around the same time, between 1872 and 1881. An addition was put on one side in the 1890s. This house is in a really splendid state of preservation. All of the original details are intact. So moving forward, these are things we would want to preserve: the slate mansard, the shutters, the windows where possible, the window pane arrangement, proportions, the window casings, the corbels, the porch, the railings. All of these original elements are things that we would want to preserve, as well as the outbuilding in the back. There's a really charming barn on the back of the property. 30 Belden, built in 1874. This is also Second Empire. We have a wonderful old photograph of it, and we can see that it's really been beautifully preserved. We've lost the original siding, or it's been covered, and we've lost the shutters, but otherwise it's in great condition. And so moving forward, we would want to preserve all of those wonderful details, the brick chimneys, the decorative supports on the porch, things like that. And of course the roof line, which is really distinctive and interesting. 43 Belden, this is my house. This is a folk Victorian built between 1876 and 1881. The side addition, the first floor was added in 1890, and the second floor was just finished this year. And here what we would want to preserve are like the gingerbread detailing under the eaves, the finials at the tops of the roof points, the front porch, the supports, the railing, and in the back there's an original stable with the original privy. 24 Belden is a Queen Anne structure built in 1883. Also in really wonderful condition. It has a beautiful Chinese Chippendale style porch railing that we should try to preserve. The windows have an amazing pane pattern of 16/2 or 16/1 in a lot of cases. It still has its window casements and all of its porch supports, so those are things we would want to preserve as along with the roof line, and the outbuilding has a barn. 12 Belden is a Queen Anne that was built between 1890 and 1893. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the windows in this house, but where we still have original windows, we would want to preserve those or replicate them. And we would want to preserve the front porch and its railings and its supports and a brick chimney, as well as the really interesting sort of eclectic roof line, which was characteristic of the Queen Anne style. 41 Belden is a slightly simplified Queen Anne house built in 1898. We would want to preserve the shutters, the front porch. The front porch has these really nice decorative details at the top of the columns, turned wood spindles on the porch railing. So those are things we want to hold on to. 50 Belden was either Queen Anne or Folk Victorian, built in 1903. In this case, the front porch was enclosed in the 70s, and a large addition was put on in the back of the house. But from the street, we can see that it still has the original, you can tell what the original house looked like. It still has its form, its basic form, and it does still fit in well with the collection of houses. So we think it's still a good candidate to include in the district. 37 Belden was built in 1904 in the neoclassical style. This one has lots of original detail. Almost nothing has been replaced. So we would really want to preserve the windows and their pane patterns, which are characteristic of the neoclassical style, the window casings, and the porch, and all those sort of details. The front door is also original. 51 Belden was recently restored with a lot of its original details kept and restored. So we would want to continue to maintain those and to keep them. It was built in the shingle style in 1906, and it has new shingles, but in the original pattern of the shingles on top and the clapboard on the bottom. And it's got its original front porch railing and supports and its second story porch as well. 42 Belden, also in the shingle style. This was built sometime before 1908. There's a large addition on the front of the house, which unfortunately obscures its original proportions, but we would still want to keep these wonderful front porch supports with the stone bases and the turned wood spindles on the railing, and then whatever original windows are left, we would want to keep. And the shingles on the second and third floor seem to be original. We would want to do our best to keep or replicate those. 17 Belden, also built in the shingle style. In 1913, we can see from the old picture that an addition has been put on the side, which kind of changes the proportions of the house, but it does still keep its original front porch with the supports and the railing, so we would want to maintain that. It's unfortunately lost all of its original windows and it's lost its original pane patterns, but someday those could be restored if somebody wanted to. So those are all the houses. Just moving forward, if we do designate Belden Avenue as historic, some of the things we would want to preserve are obviously this pattern of the rear alleys and the front porches, which are just really a defining characteristic of this block. Also, the outbuildings on the backs of the property are often really charming and well preserved, and we would want to keep those to the best of our ability in the state that they're in today. Or better. Otherwise, we're concerned about what we see from the street, the facade. We want to maintain the roof lines, which are so distinctive, and each style has its own kind of roof line. Certainly windows, pane patterns, window styles, those are all just really important in establishing the style of the architectural style of a house, which is just a really important way to sort of maintain the charm of the neighborhood. And then all of the decorative details like the corbels and the cornices and the shutters and the siding, those are all important as well. So what we're really trying to do is just prevent the gradual erosion of these stylistic details that we start to lose when you enclose a front porch or you throw away the shutters or the corbels and don't put anything back where they used to be. Things sort of start to get eroded, and we kind of lose the historic charm that makes this block so special. So that's my pitch. Let me know if you have any questions.
I have a technical sort of question. Is this, this is an application? What is this? Because we've been working with you, at least initially, more intensely, and we've been reviewing and, commenting on documents that have come our way. This is the first time I've gotten to look at all these individual property forms. And I suppose I have some comments to make on some of the components of some houses. But what's the goal tonight besides a celebration of a lot of hard work?
Well, the goal is for you to forward a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. So this is a public hearing. This has been noticed as a public hearing, and so anybody who objects to the establishment of this historic district is supposed to come here tonight and talk about that, or anybody who supports it can also talk about it. But after tonight, you should have everything you need, and I emailed everything to you ahead of time, so you have plenty of time to review it. You should have everything you need to forward a written recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and that recommendation is supposed to, as I said in my email, it's supposed to include your thoughts about what's important about this district and what should be maintained moving forward and preserved. And in addition to that, I mean, this application will serve as sort of a baseline moving forward for how we want to treat these houses, because this is where we decide, okay, these things are important, but also we're developing, Steve Tilley is in the process of developing design requirements for historic districts in Dobbs Ferry. That's going to be finished soon. And then we'll have a really good set of requirements that are going to be crystal clear about what the expectations are that you can work from when applications for changes to these houses come before you.
So I want to take a step back. A moment ago you said that our recommendation to the Board of Trustees should include what is important in each individual house. You've already in fact done all of that. So if there are sort of small items of contention, should we work that out with you as opposed to wrap this into a larger document that goes to the Board of Trustees?
Yeah, I mean,
I'd like it to be as seamless as possible. I think 99% of what I've read makes perfect sense to me. So I'd like it to move forward, and I think it's a noble cause, and you've done all of the serious work that is required to get this far. So I'd like to recommend it to the Board of Trustees. I'd like maybe to discuss a few small points.
Yeah, I mean, nothing will happen until you have a written recommendation that you all agree to. So we can work on that together. You can take what I've given you and use that to create it. However you want to go forward is fine. So.
I have a procedural question. So the forms that are filled out, not all of them are filled out by the current property owners?
I'd say about half of them were.
So what are, I guess, if you're going to deem someone's house a historic house and it doesn't allow them to then modify their house from a window or from other, I mean, I would think that they would be part of that conversation.
Yeah, so that was a huge point of debate in writing the legislation for how we go about doing this. And it was decided that the public hearings are the best time for people to come forward and sort of talk about what they think should be done in these situations. So there are two public hearings built into the process. This one and then the one before the Board of Trustees. The one before the Board of Trustees is where they can react to the recommendation that you make, which will make specific recommendations about each individual house. Also, yeah, I mean, there are going to be be design requirements put into place that people will have to follow. So everybody, I mean, I have very enthusiastic buy-in from everybody in this district, just about. So, you know, that's, and they've all been notified officially that this is happening. I think, did you get some of the letters? Did you get any letters?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Not from every neighbor, but we've gotten a few. So to the question of guidelines, will the guidelines be, again, reviewed and put into the same vote or the same process as the district, or will we form the district first and the guidelines will follow?
So the guidelines are taking a little bit of time to develop. So in the meantime, there's a placeholder in the legislation that says you should use the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation. So that's going to be your guideline until we get the new ones figured out and put into place. Those will exist separately of this historic district. They'll apply to any and all historic districts in Duxbury.
So the district is defined as an area, a defined area that is going to be a map.
It's that map.
No, well, the map it's just how
It's
stars
the
over
actual
houses.
It's 12 houses.
Are there any other properties that would be eligible to join into the historic district in the future? And is there sort of a pending list?
Yeah, so that would require a broader survey of the area, which, you know, we certainly will look at doing in the future. This is, we decided to do a smaller district because this is kind of a pilot project.
I understand. My comments are intended to define an area, not only a house. And the reason is because the houses, like preservation for preservation's sake is not something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in preservation when there is a quality achieved over time. That is, it's an obligation, we have to protect it. So build and acquire that quality by the porches, by the service roads, et cetera, that we all like and we want to protect. So it's not only the houses, but the street that needs to be protected. The setbacks, there is a whole set of issues that have to come into play, including, for example, I don't know, the corner of Belden and Walker. That house is a very nice house, the brick house, that has a very distinct massing that also affects the neighbor that is protected. So there will be there will be room for district, protected district, and protected like what we have in Manhattan, in New York City, which is a landmark house and a landmark area. There are degrees of preservation.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about that is that they're essentially the same. So we don't have enough architectural monuments at the village to, I mean, there's a few.
True.
And those, some of those are on the register. But the idea is that you create the district and you create the guidelines.
But it's
So that because it's so I use an important word, which is erosion.
Yes.
And the problem with these kinds of neighborhoods in other areas, other towns, other parts of the village is that they've been eroded over time and they no longer constitute something as meaningful as this. And so, are you advocating for individual houses?
No, I'm advocating for a two-tier preservation effort, which is the house and the street.
Right. We do have something called contributing and non-contributing structures, which would allow for, in the case of a larger district, like say if you wanted to do the whole downtown, that would be everything within certain boundaries would be considered the district. But if you had one house in that district built in the 50s, you would designate it non-contributing. So it would allow for that kind of thing. where that house, still, you have to look at it carefully when you want to make changes because it's going to impact the district.
Correct.
I think that's what you're talking about.
So, but you have, in this district, there are no non-contributing houses, there's just a sliding scale of value.
Right.
And at what point does a house fall below that contributing line?
So the score sheet is one tool that we use for figuring that out. It's a combination of factors like age, how much is left, how much is irreversible that's been done to it, things like that. So those all come into play.
But is there a cutoff? You base its merit as contributing or non on the scorecard?
Yeah, that's.
Or would
saying
you?
how
I know you
much-
haven't come across that problem yet,
Right.
because everything is contributing in this district.
Right. On the last page of the individual property forms, you'll see the thresholds for each category.
Yeah.
I still would have a question about the actual property owner's permission to be included in a historic district. I think that is, if I was a property owner there, regarding anything that happens, I would have an issue if someone deemed something to my home without my specific permission.
So let me
So-
take you through some of the history of.
And it wasn't in place when I bought the home, so you're imposing something on someone.
Right, so that's something we've debated for 3 years in Dobbsbury
I'm just-
in public hearings. And the original legislation had a consent form that 50% of the homeowners had to sign. And having that consent requirement in the legislation made us ineligible for something called certified local government status, which is something the state gives to municipalities that have put legislation in place for historic preservation in the way that the state has deemed proper. And so they don't like consent requirements, and so that would have made us ineligible for certain grants, for things like surveys of larger neighborhoods and things like that. And so we debated it long and hard, because in Dobbsbury, property rights are very important, and we didn't want people to feel like this was being imposed on them. So ultimately, with the help of the Board of Trustees, we came to the decision that we should take the consent requirement out, but put into place 2 public hearings that would be noticed in the newspaper and with certified letters, that would give people the opportunity to come out and express their objections or their support. And so that kind of puts it more in the public sphere, rather than just asking for a signature on a form, which doesn't allow for any debate or any kind of public give and take. So that's kind of how we came to that way of doing it.
Okay.
And I was on that committee in the
Understood.
early phases where we discussed some of those.
No, I'm not.
things.
I understand. I understand what was agreed to. I understand what was and why, and what you explained it very nicely. I appreciate that.
But in essence, that happens anyway at this point. The first applicant is an example of that.
So I have some neighbors, if anybody wants to hear from them about this application. If you're ready for that part.
Sure, yeah.
Did they have a resolution that binds them? So, and they know what they've written themselves into.
My name is Ann
That's just my
Schmider, and I live
opinion.
at 100 Belton. That's not included in this historic district, but I've lived here a long time, and that part of Duxbury is, I think, the best. And I fully support the designation of this as an historic area, and I really thank Sonia for doing all the legwork, and I'm glad we're up to this point, and I would vote that you approve it as a board here. Thank you.
just wanted to say to Brad, to that concern, this is not exactly like dropping the entire neighborhood into amber. It's not, in general, the results of creating historic districts have been an increase in property values that's measurable between those districts and surrounding non-designated neighborhoods over time. It's pretty well documented by the Municipal Art Society in Brooklyn, as well as preventing unwarranted demolition, which is the environmental impacts of that. So that's been pretty well documented, and around the country, the property value results. And so, I think the reassurance is that we'll be doing the guidelines, be finishing the guidelines, after we've actually started them, which still has to happen. But those guidelines are, again, a way of managing change. It's not a way of, it's, looking at the character defining elements and making sure that those stay in place, but it's managing change over time so that the evolution is it's consistent with the historic characteristics. And this board is going to be managing that. So to give reassurance to you and to applicants, it's not the deprivation of property rights. And I know my bristle, I don't want to, I'm an architect, I don't want anybody telling me what to do. But nevertheless, you agree to give up certain rights in certain locations for the continuity of the larger district. And I think the guidelines will be, again, promoting positively what should be done. As much as they're saying, we're drawing the line here, and certainly as we're doing it, we're going to be reaching out. Questions like substitute materials. Where can you do AZAC? Is AZAC 8 feet and above or 20 feet and above as a replication? And can you do it? Vinyl, those kind of substitute materials issues, which really are the things that are coming on us right now, as well as renewable energy systems and other positive, kind of positive trends which have to be managed in the course of dealing with the historic fabric. So it's not having the consent does not mean that there's, it's falling off a cliff and suddenly somebody's completely controlling what happens to your property. It's really a socially managed thing following reasonable guidelines that will be adopted. So the big thing here is this has a lot of integrity. It's been documented. This area is worthy of being a historic district, and there's work for us to do in other districts in town, which also are, maybe bigger and more complicated, but have enough stuff that we need to manage change there as well.
Any other neighbors? No. Okay, we will get together and send you, we'll discuss some comments and then make our recommendation to the Board of Trustees. No motion to be taken, correct? Okay. Thank you. 75 Main Street.
document that was sent to you several weeks ago, just outlining our plan. To summarize the idea and the concept, we are trying to be as minimal as possible with the signage, as subtle as possible, and as respectful to the facade of the building as possible. So this slide here just shows roughly the location of the storefront. And this diagram just shows roughly in relation to the location of the storefront where the signage is going to be placed. To summarize, we are putting a very, very small plaque to the left of the entrance. It will be mounted in brackets that are offset from the brick in brass. The brass finish of the sign is actually not treated so that it can weather naturally. And then we have a series of small appliques to the windows that are no larger than 2 feet wide that will be on the 3 central storefront windows. And this is just to designate the location. This is a little bit more of a visual drawing of at least the storefront on Main Street. So it entails a small amount of branding and signage on the door where we'll have our hours very minimally placed. Again, the small applique that will be to the left of the entrance. And then on each of the windows, an applique that is in a very, very subtle tone, in a very small font, just to designate where the storefront is. We didn't want to make a big sign or do anything to disrupt the facade of the building. We really wanted to work with it, but at the same time, we had the challenge of trying to designate the storefront separate from the rest of the building, because the ebony color that's going to be on the storefront was already designated. It's not something that we chose. It's something that was chosen with the building itself and will be carried through the rest of the building. So this just shows the location on Main Street. This is a bit of a rendering. It's definitely getting skewed and not so wonderfully shown. But essentially the idea is that the color is very subtle. It's one of our brand colors. So it's a dusty brown, which will be applied to the window, and then the brass signage. And this is more of a front-facing view. This details the door and the dimensions that are required, and then this is a more kind of zoomed-in view of the signage itself and the bracketing system that we're going to be using to mount the sign. The dimensions, which are 2 by 4 on each of the window appliques, and then these are light fixtures. We wanted to, we saw some images of the building from the 1800s that had the barn lighting on it. We obviously had to find a way to modernize it and work within the standards that are required for the downlighting to not disrupt neighbors. So we tried to find a really beautiful, more vintage-looking barn sconce that still fits with the branding and the look of the design, but at the same time meets other requirements and directs the light downward and also directs the light to the sign so that we're not having to illuminate the sign separately. So these are the sconces that we chose. And this is just a little simple summary of the colorways that we're doing. Again, the brass is going to be left unfinished so that it ages with time. This is the ebony color that's already been approved with the project, the brick finishing that's already been approved with the project, and then that first color is the branding color that is the subtle dusty brown that will be included on the applique windows. And that's all.
Great looking scheme.
Sorry?
It's a great looking scheme of
Thank you.
signage. My
We put a
only,
lot of time and effort
only
in.
one comment, if, this is real brass and it's great, and it would age. My question is, if when it's aged, you're gonna be able to read the sign.
For me,
I mean, it's
we feel
discreet.
very strongly about letting it age. We
No.
feel that even a patina brass still has a bit of a contrast, but I am trying to be understated and very subtle with this. I'm not trying to be showy,
No,
but
that's
I
good.
appreciate that.
We love it.
And I think at the end of the day, if it ever gets to the point where the aging interferes, then we can always polish it up.
Yeah, no, great signage. Excellent signage. We've never, I don't think we've ever seen quite a sign application like this before. So.
We just wanted to be very thorough.
Yeah, I see.
Very nice.
Yeah, excellent. So I don't have any comments other than, I think that's, I don't think it, unlacquered grass won't turn dark, that dark brown like that. So I don't think there's gonna be any. We also have, we also have,
No, I don't think it's a
so
problem.
the rail is also in,
It's brass.
Same brass.
it's the same brass, and it's also unlacquered if I remember correctly.
All I'm saying
is,
is,
the idea is that we leave the materials to age naturally so that they ultimately take on a more vintage appearance from the exterior, which is very important to us.
all I'm saying is you might consider engraving. So at least when this,
It is engraved.
no, it's
Oh,
not.
I'm sorry, this is meant, this is meant to just show you, the etching color and the brass color of the signage. We are going to inset that.
Oh.
Sorry about that, it will be engraved, it will
Yeah,
be.
so then
it
you'll
will
So
be
then-
matched.
you always get the contrast.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, comments? Good. Great. Motion to approve this as submitted. Second. Oh, we want to, we have
If I can just ask the board to please ensure that any commentary that's made is specifically about the signage and not anything else related to this project, because we have been kind of traumatized by the circumstances.
That's what I wanted to say, I fully support this. I think it's great, and the light fixtures and dark sky and all that. But while you're talking about signage, I actually would hope that you would go on the record, because there's a non-compliant barbershop sign that revolves and sparkles, that actually is not compliant with the sign ordinance on Main Street. So it's been there now for like a month or so. So I would hope that maybe you could join me in saying, can we get rid of the non-compliant sign on Main Street? Because I
Can we
think
get rid of
I
the
understand.
we have this kind of signage coming along, we would encourage this kind of signage to kind of take over.
Thank you. To continue where we left off with your vote, before any further panic sets in by anyone, did we have a second? Second, unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, as you know, this board has zero power of enforcement.
No, I don't.
However, I agree with you 100%, so maybe somehow saying it on record, we can, someone can pay the barbershop sign a visit so it doesn't,
And as a member
shed
of the
some.
business community, I also agree, because I think we go through a lot, there's a lot of requirements to uphold to the village standards, and I think it's important to have enforcement in place for that. I definitely support and agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you. 127 Hilldale.
I'm Shadi Kishmat, representing 127 Hilldale Road. We're adding a two-story addition in the rear of the house, trying to match all the details on the material of the existing house. The house is preserved contemporary style. The gable roof, we're trying to design a gable roof to the new addition, with one that can share same siding, same board, same type of window. We can look at it, look at the existing house. The roof
Pardon?
line, the new one existing, the roof line, the eave line.
Are there any neighbors here? No. you bring the microphone?
The owner wants to first make the bay window 5 feet high. This is a job, 5 feet high bay window. The 5 copies of your possible.
And you're increasing this or decreasing it?
The high cover, just in order to make the window seat, so we can still have. That's the only purpose.
And this application will be pending zoning
I see.
for this setback.
So this is a,
We pass it on.
Oh, that's zoning, okay, then it's
so you have a variance. Any comments? I make a motion to approve this application as submitted with the added change of the window bay on the rear elevation. Do I have a second? Mayor seconds. Unanimous, thank you. Yeah. 10 Livingston Avenue, Lombardo.
Brian Collin from Gotham Signs and Graphics. This application is for a channel letter sign for soon-to-be opening restaurant, Marlowe's, on Town Keystone, over near Town Square. So it's going to be white channel letters, flushing out into the facade of the building. And I have it there. Its location, cross-section of the letter. Just under 14 feet across, 13 feet, 10 inches across. The tallest letter will be about 2.5 feet high, 5 inches deep. Just fairly straightforward channel letters.
And this is a restaurant, or?
Yes.
This restaurant occupies this one single bay or multiple bays?
Multiple days, but with the,
I don't have a microphone, but with that feature right there with the stone, you can't get letters all.
No, of course,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
But you have more than one bay?
Correct.
It's because they're putting an awning on the rest of it.
Yeah, well, we have some overall ratio,
Yeah.
but if it's, which this would exceed if it were only a one bay.
Yep.
Any,
this other picture is kind of one. It's on the corner of this property, so it's these two, and then
yeah,
that's how it would be situated right there.
thank you. Any issues you see with this?
No, we checked out the side, it's not this sign.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with that.
So, I'd like to ask the board, if I may, I didn't realize at the time this was submitted, I need to get approval for this, but this would be for,
Would you take the mic, you're gonna?
I didn't realize at the time I submitted the application that I would need approval for this, which would just be a panel inside the pylon.
Sure, we can distribute those to, can we have a copy?
Yeah, sure, I have copies. I don't know where, it's to be determined where its location is going to be inside the sign.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's just going to work right in with the rest of it. Same color substrate.
So is this, would we call this as, because we broke in the sign and the awning into two separate applications for some reason? So would this be a third? Or would this, could we add this to the main sign? Okay.
So this is this, the awning is a separate, two separate applications.
Well, I'm trying to understand that. Why are we looking at two separate applications? Any particular reason?
It was two different companies that were doing it. So
Okay,
they each did their own.
got it. So this is in,
You can see it.
yeah, so I just want to be sure that,
So the awning is facing the parking lot, is that correct?
Both ways. It's a different application.
this is a little bit tricky because looking at the, and I realize we're looking at a sign application, but your placement for the sign in this rendering is different than the placement for the sign that the awning maker will be, is proposing. So this is pushed up into this, you know, there are these reveal control joints, whatever they are. And, you know, it's a little bit funny to have your sign spanning those joints, and your rendering is quite sensible. It sits below those, but you know, ultimately, these two have to be reconciled.
Okay, so I'm happy to wait, he's up next.
Okay.
Why don't you put them between the two lines?
Well, Mike, it might be skewed too, because this is his application and it shows
Oh,
a
okay.
reveal directly through it.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
I don't know if those elevations necessarily just loses the contrast of the reveal on the stucco or not, but.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, you can see them up top.
Yeah, but I think if you look at his next page,
Yeah, no,
there's
I
a
can
reveal
see
that goes directly through it.
Yeah, no, I see.
So it's a little,
Yeah, I would advocate that the Lombardos goes lower between the top of the center, between the top of the canopy and the line, right?
Yeah, and that may, you know, that may reduce it to some degree, but it's not clear.
it's also funny that this application has a side sign on the side of the building for no reason. That I don't think is being proposed by anybody, right? This little guy.
Oh, that,
Huh?
I was gonna ask the board, I know it would be a lot to ask.
There's another one.
If you would be willing to take a look at that, that came in subsequent to,
Right.
from my application,
Kind of,
which I had that.
Just use the mic, please.
use the mic.
Thank you.
I just, it's very hard for us to consider one storefront with two different companies, especially when there's multiple iterations of renderings with different information from both different companies. So right now, they don't coordinate to one another, and it's tough. I mean, we're looking at the same meeting, so, but there's a lot of nuances that are hard to follow.
Can I speak for just a second?
Sure.
On behalf of the owning company?
Could introduce yourself, state your name.
Greg Sadek, G&S Owning, Hartsdale, New York. We only had the rendering of the sign in there, just to show it in perspective with the awning. The location is totally up to Brian. Okay, so, it's something that probably should have been deleted out of the drawing on our end, but we didn't. So as far as any location, an inch or two or a couple inches here and there, has nothing to do with the sign. My application is just for the awning, and there's something my secretary just had in there, but we had 200 revisions on this in my office.
Yeah, no, I understand that. However, the two have to work in harmony, and so if your awning shrinks and his sign grows, or vice versa, those things have to work together.
No, my awning dimensions are firm. If
you need me to shrink it, obviously, we'll take the board's recommendations, but my awnings are to code and they match some of the existing awnings.
I'm not suggesting you change your awning.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying that without these two integrated into a drawing, we can't assess it. So we have one drawing, we have another drawing. These are showing the sign in different places. I don't know if this drawing is scaled the same way this one is. I would like to avoid any instance where the sign, as is shown in yours, is overlapping these joints. I think it should sit either between them or between the awning and the joint.
Okay.
But I don't know if this is to scale, because there's no way for me to tell. I don't know where the awning fits into this. So I think it's
Okay. How could we remedy it tonight without postponing it to the next meeting? Because I know he's under the gun to open.
But there are two separate applications.
Two separate
We
applications.
look at the awning, and then we go for the sign, right?
There's a couple issues with the awning too that don't meet code.
Okay, I'm listening.
One of them is the height of it over the door, and one is, I don't know if it's a letter or a logo.
You mean the height over the
On,
door, meaning?
The height of the L,
where you walk in,
the height of the L over the bumped out portion.
Yeah.
Okay.
the highest you could have is 6 feet, and that's what your regular awning is, and that one goes above it.
No, you know what, in the drawing, in this program that we have, if I put it at the same height, you'd never be able to see the differential in it. So I just had to bump it out, but all the awnings are mounted at the same height.
No
6
higher
feet.
than 6 feet.
No higher than 6 feet.
And the only other thing is, I don't know if it's a logo on the slant part, but it says no lettering or names on that either.
Okay, then.
I don't know if you could have, if it's considered a logo, if it's different.
It's just, his logo is actually a lot more complicated. It has an L and there's a circle around it that says Bar Pizza Restaurant. So in order, we read that in the guidelines, so in order to avoid the term logo, we just took it out and put the letter L in it. If you still deem that's a logo, I'll tell them, listen, they approved it without the L, you have your option.
It's a logo, I mean,
It's definitely a logo.
Okay.
unequivocally.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that this is only proud of the rest, it's not taller.
It's not taller, it's just, if I put it the same height, if I
No, I-
submerge it, you'd
that's
never be able
okay.
to see it in the
Okay.
program.
6 foot dimension on this sheet.
Does it come out more than 5 feet?
No, 2 feet.
Okay.
It's, there's a separate sheet that was submitted to the town.
Yeah, oh,
It's
yeah.
not relating to anything, but that might be what it is.
6 feet, 6 feet.
And here's a sample of this umbrella color.
That's only 6 feet to the front slant.
Sample looks fine.
It's the line. It's the line transmits there.
And the same thing, the bottom aligns.
The bottom aligns, correct.
So bottom aligns, top aligns. All right.
You know, it's such a dark color, if I had it all the same, you'd
It's
never,
okay, I get
never
it.
be able to pronounce it.
Now, back to the sign. Can your sign fit between the top of the awning and this joint line?
Let me go grab my application.
Okay, I think we got your portion. We'll come back to you.
Okay, I'll put this
after
back
this,
and I'll go sit down.
I have,
See, I think,
I don't have that measurement
I
for
think
that
this,
first scene.
this location seems better than this.
Yeah, but the sign sits below
Right.
the scene, more centered on the sign.
The idea would be, here it is. The idea is that you take the optical center line, and you bring this low-power speed, and bring it down between this line and this.
Okay.
Are these fixed awnings? They're fixed, right?
I'm sorry?
The awnings are fixed?
The awnings are fixed. Just like the rest of the awnings that are on the box.
Well, we had some retractable ones at the moment.
We do?
We did.
I have another applicant.
I know they put umbrellas on, and
Well, yeah, that's why they put umbrellas up.
yeah, by the way, that was my application that I had.
As long as it's fixed, it'll be fine. I think it was retractable.
And I went through a lot of work with Susan. I still don't know why the board knocked it down,
It's retractable.
but that was
That's an issue.
for another day.
Since it doesn't retract.
Because it
bring
did
it
meet
down.
all the guidelines, and it was retractable. I think it was, I heard from Susan, it was just an aesthetic thing more than anything.
We'll come back to that. Let's deal with this sign.
Okay.
So you have 3 signs for us. You have
Yeah,
pylon,
that's just, that's just a
Sign.
panel for the pylons.
which looks fine. Any comments on this? I'd like to add this one into, to the approval. We have
Channel letter sign.
the channel letter sign, which is the main sign, which we would like you to place between the top of the awning
Okay.
and the first joint line. However, I think we need some confirmation on your part that it's not going to be awkwardly close or unreadable.
Okay, if it does change the size of the letters, meaning if the letter, I don't think it would be a problem, but if we do have to make the letters smaller.
Inch or two shorter.
As long as it's proportional, do I resend that to you in an email or just go ahead and do it?
You can, do we need to resubmit that if the sign gets a little smaller?
No, if it's small.
If it's a little smaller,
Okay.
we're okay.
I just want to make sure.
If it gets bigger, then.
Yeah, then come back. to us. And then the third sign, which is a,
Well, this was another thing, option they wanted to consider, which was kind of a late
It-
entry, which
is this, are you requesting this or not?
requesting,
Do you want, I don't understand.
well, meaning they would like to know if this type of sign could be approved. I mean, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be feasible to have both, because I don't think you have 2 facade signs on one side.
Well, we don't know where you're proposing to put it, or the size,
Here,
or,
I have it right here, I'll show you.
Is it lit?
Yes, it's a internally illuminated, protruding, circular blade sign.
How does that compare to the other 2 signs that are existing on site for Near Sports Club and Oasis? Is it the same
Those-
size? Is it bigger?
I believe it might be a little bigger. I don't believe their signs are illuminated either. I think those are just regular blade signs.
I think they're lit
I
from
don't think
above.
I'm sorry?
I think they're lit from above.
Oh, lit from above,
Right above it.
okay.
I'd be concerned that it'd be more prominent than the other signs that are already there. And I don't know if those other signs would be replaced over time, because it looks kind of inconsistent with what's already there.
I'm not sure, I don't remember what that, we'd have to go back and, you have.
Yeah, so it's kind
Ah.
of small, and they're not great. but
No, they're not good at all.
If they all look like the button, they'd be better, but I don't know if there's any need to change those.
Unlikely.
Unlikely,
I also don't know where they are relative to this, where those small signs exist relative to this from an overall site plan. Is that on one of the long street views?
it's on the same, it's also on the same.
Same
It's on the
street?
Same side of the street.
Same
Different
side of the
buildings.
street. Got it.
Several yards down.
But also, there's a sort of a change in the,
Right, it looked like there was a little,
My other concern is your awning's gonna block it, too, or it's slightly,
Obscure.
slightly obscured, at least halfway,
Direction.
which you don't show on the. That sign's gonna be
Yeah.
right here, so it's gonna be like right at this point.
yeah, it's funny.
So it's kinda odd.
What- well, I
I
guess.
think this has to be thought through a little better, and I think all the components represented, so, I think in order to consider this, we need, where's this awning? The adjacent awning, how does this relate placement-wise? And
Okay.
how does it relate to the sign, which is just around the corner?
My question is, maybe you would also consider just putting the L on the side of the awning.
Because
Yeah.
it protrudes out.
Can you put it on the side faces? I mean, you'd see it from both directions.
We just can't put the logo at the, where's the logo not permitted?
On the slanted part.
Just on
Yeah,
the
that's
slant, yeah.
So on the vertical faces of the side of the
Vertical
awning,
face on the
put the
side.
logos.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You could always do this and do away with the channel letter sign. That'd be kind of classy.
Just the L.
Just the L.
It's a nice L.
They'd be willing to consider that. This sign has an elegance to it by itself without this big channel letter
As
sign.
opposed to the edge, yes.
Yeah.
So if you were just to have this L kind of prominent that sits above,
Sits above the awning.
well, sits above the awning, so relatively in this elevation, right, it would be protruding out from the face. This wouldn't be there. The awnings would draw your attention to it, but this gives it elegance and class that is a little bit different
A different
feel,
than the channel letters.
and I think would be possibly better than the big channel letters illuminated on what is not an entrance storefront, right? There's no way, you got a big illuminated sign going into a building, you know, not going into an entrance.
Yeah, well,
So it's-
there's some discussion around that, but the entrance is on a parking lot, so you're not gonna get any traffic on it.
Understood.
Yeah.
But it is where, I mean, it's where the handicap entrance comes up, right? So
True,
people,
yes, yes.
people do come up and around that way. Just something to,
So revisit the circular sign.
Yeah, I think there's some good suggestions floating around, and we go with this. But for tonight, we can make a motion to approve the awning is gonna be the next one. The channel letter sign, with the stipulation that it fit between the top of the awning and the lower joint line in the stucco. And if there are any issues and it has to shrink, we're okay with that. And in addition, we're a motion also to approve the small sign that goes into the larger pylon sign. And your seconds, unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The awning. Any other, I think we kind of went through this again.
as long as it's 6 foot high.
All right, so I think we covered all of the issues when you were up here before.
Take the L off the exit.
Yeah, so so I'll make a motion to approve this awning as submitted, with the removal of the logo on the slanted portion of the awning, and with the stipulation that that protruding section above the door be 6 feet, be in line at the line top and bottom with the rest of the awning. Yeah, your seconds. Unanimous, okay, thank you. Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting. Second. Dale seconds, unanimous, meeting adjourned, thank you.